Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our LinkedIn webinar session. We have with us tonight Chaim Shapiro, Shapiro,
Shapiro, yeah.
Shapiro, yeah, who is the Executive Director for Undergraduate Career Services at Touro University, a freelance writer, public speaker, LinkedIn consultant, a board-certified coach specializing in career coaching. Chaim earned his master's degree in college student personnel from Loyola University in Chicago and also studied in the Institutional Leadership and Policy Studies PhD program at the University of California, Riverside Graduate School of Education. He has more than 20 years of experience working in college administration. So please join me tonight for welcoming Chaim to talk to us about LinkedIn tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'll tell you, by the way, it's interesting when you start working in colleges longer than the students have been alive. It's like one of those interesting thresholds. Talk to students that weren't actually born when you first started in 1999, and there's a lot of those for me. But definitely it's great. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and present LinkedIn. And what we're hoping to do over the course of this session is to basically go up and down the LinkedIn profile and show you how to maximize your LinkedIn profile to make sure that you're presenting your brand message the way that you want to present it, and you're getting noticed by people who are of importance to you. After we complete the up and down in terms of the profile, we're going to show you how to look for jobs on LinkedIn. After that, if we have time, I'm going to get on my soapbox and complain about some of the recent changes to LinkedIn that is really, really hurting students like you that I really think we need to really push LinkedIn to change. And if you have time at the end, I'm also going to show you how to find and engage the right people on LinkedIn. One of the things that I do, I want this to be as interactive a session as possible. The reason I do this as a live demo, even though something always goes wrong and doesn't work the way you intended to when you do a live demo, is that I want you to be able to stop me at some point and say, well, how did you do that? Can you show me that functionality again? Or ask your questions of how to utilize different parts of LinkedIn. So at any point, if you have questions, please stop. You can either put them in the chat or you could actually put them into conversation itself and join us on screen. I also usually stop maybe 5 or 6 minutes to ask for questions, but you don't have to wait for that. If you have a question, please let us know and we're glad to answer that. Okay, now, first thing we need to do is to get into the edit mode of your LinkedIn profile to start making the changes. The easiest way to do that is to click on your picture, and that will take you into the edit mode. But I try to normalize people going to this little me button over here and clicking view profile. The reason for that is a bunch of other things you can do over here. And I want people to know where those other functions like settings and privacy are. So if we click view profile here, this is going to take you into the edit mode of your profile. Okay, so this is my profile in edit mode. Obviously, nobody else has access to this except for you. It's password protected. This is where you can make all the changes you need to make in order to make sure you're maximizing your LinkedIn profile. Now, the most common question I get from students and professionals alike is, what is the most important component of your LinkedIn profile? And my answer to that is there's actually 3 components that are most important. It's what I call the LinkedIn triumvirate. These are the 3 things that show up everywhere you show up on LinkedIn. So whether it's in messages or emails or other things on LinkedIn, 3 things show up with you. Those 3 things are your name, your photo, and this right over here, which is called your LinkedIn headline. So the most important components of LinkedIn are the things that show up everywhere that you do. And I want to go through these each one at a time to make sure that we maximize each of these. Now, first thing here is your photo. Very easy to get to edit. Just click on your photo right over there. That will take you into the edit mode. Click edit right over here, and you could see you could add you could actually filter or zoom in, zoom out. It's going to let me do this here. It's being a little slow. Filters. It's being a little slow. There we go. So you could change this to make this exactly the way that you wanted to make sure that you're maximizing the way that you appear for people from the outside. You can simply upload a new photo, or actually you can actually take one on your computer by using the camera on your computer itself. You want to make sure that you have to enable the access for the computer and you use frames. Now, one of the more common questions I get about your photo is, what clothes should I be wearing in the photo that I'm taking? I think the answer to that depends on the profession that you're in. So I don't know enough about pharmacy per se, but if you were going to a networking event and people in pharmacy or health sciences from the upper level, the C-suite, the CEO, the chief operating officer were actually there, what kind of clothes would you be wearing for that networking event? If the answer to that is formal clothes, that's what you should be wearing. If the answer to that is a t-shirt and jeans, that's what you should be wearing. So for example, when I work with students who are looking to go into finance companies, yes, formal clothes. If they're looking for a job at a startup or Google, then they want to be looking with clothes that be much more informal, because the goal is to make sure that people understand that you can fit and you're part of the team. And if you're not wearing clothes that matches their culture, it can be work against you in terms of that. Okay. So that's how you actually go and edit and come and make sure that you have the right profile photo. Now, the edit mode for your name and this right over here, your LinkedIn headline, is this little pencil right over here. When I click on this pencil, so take me into this another screen, and this gives me the opportunity to include my name. And it might sound simple, right? What is in a name, as maybe as Shakespeare said, but actually it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you might see some people that want to put their degree. They want to put Doctor of Pharmacy, for example, after their name, under additional name, or at the end of their name. I usually advise against that, because if LinkedIn wanted to give us the opportunity to provide that, they could give us a space for it, and they don't. More importantly, as you become a more active user and people are trying to tag you, if you put things other than your name in your name, it can make it harder for people to tag you for advanced users. One of the good changes of LinkedIn recently is they changed this from former name to additional name. So additional name could be a maiden name or a former name. Or I work at Turo with a lot of students who have names like Chaim, for example, and they also have a secular name. Let's say their secular name is Isaac. And they want to be sure that people know that they're both Isaac and Chaim. You just put that in there under the additional name, and it'll show up in between your first name and your last name. So it's perfect for a former name, a maiden name, a professional sounding nickname, if you have that, or if you have, a religious name, you want to make sure that people are understanding that the way that you want them to. Okay. So that's how you go in there and change that. Or just you put the mute button on if you would there. The next thing that I want to get to here is this right over here. This is your LinkedIn headline. Now, to me, this is the most important real estate of all social media, because if I know nothing besides your name and your photo, what is it about you that makes me interested in wanting to find out more about you and click on your profile? So you really want to maximize this so people know exactly it is what you do and exactly who you are. So you see here, I put all the things that I'm able to do. I also like to separate different ideas with this little dash. Some people use a line. Big blocks of text usually do not work well on social media. I want to show you an example of one of my students in computer science used. I happen to think this was a very, very good one that she used right over here. Aspiring computer science major. She tells what she's experienced in terms of software, and that she's really inspiring the next generation of girls in tech through Girls Who Code. I think that really hits all of the angles, who she is, what she's passionate about, and what she's able to give. So I think that's the kind of thing you'd be looking to do, obviously tailored based on what your particular profession is. Now, here LinkedIn has this great thing. Oh, we'll get AI suggestions, right? We'll push this. Well, guess what? It's going to ask me to pay for premium, and it's not going to do that. Here's the thing. Don't pay for premium. Go to Google Drive and here, write a LinkedIn headline for a pharmacy student looking for a job at a hospital. Click create, and let's see what it comes up with. There we go. Again, you might not be perfect with this, but it's a starting point. You can put it into a number of different AI readers to see what you get and start building those things together. But you do not need to pay for the AI suggestion from LinkedIn in order to do that. Okay, so those are the three parts of the LinkedIn triumvirate. I'm going to pause here if you have any questions about that, then get into some of the other functions here on LinkedIn. Any questions? Nothing's up. Oh, it looks like there's a question in the chat. Is there a question? Let's see.
Nope.
What
No question
happens?
yet.
What happens if you don't have a lot of experience to add into the header? So it doesn't necessarily have to be about experience in the header, meaning the LinkedIn headline. It can also be things that are related to things you've done in school. It could be things that you're able to do. It could be skills. So a lot of other things you put in there that are not necessarily related to the work experience. It's like the student that I had over here didn't really have work experience, but she has experience doing this in class, Java and SQL. So that's the kind of thing that I would put there in order to get past that. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing right over here, which is something also that people do not use frequently on LinkedIn, and they really should. This is your background image. Now, this is usually a blank screen if you don't have this, but this is a great opportunity to help promote your brand in addition to all the other things you have on here. And, you see me as a person who claims he can give an excellent LinkedIn workshop. I don't just say that. Here's a picture of me giving a LinkedIn workshop to a bunch of very interested students. Same kind of thing exists here. We can simply go in here move this photo up, move this photo down, crop, adjust, do whatever you need to do to get it exactly the way that you want. Just be aware that your photo is going to show up here in the bottom left. I would love to have these folks' faces on the picture. I cannot do that because of the way LinkedIn has that set up, and there's nothing you can do about that. If you're interested in creating your own personalized one, again, this really promotes your brand. So if you want to do something that's related to pharmacy, for example, like the old pharmacies, grinding the old medications or something like that, you can do something like that. If you go to a website called Canva, actually, if you put in LinkedIn background images, gives you editable examples that you can actually utilize in order to create and put onto your own. So I would definitely do that, but not just your name. I think it should really show what your profession is. I have a lot of students, again, in computer science who show the ones and the zeros, or the computers connected, or accounting students will show the QuickBooks. I think, again, pharmacy, you could do something related to medicine that you could actually put in there that would actually help represent your brand in the appropriate way. I'll stop for questions just 1 minute, but just want to show you one more thing here. Now, you see here, my LinkedIn URL is my name in Chaim Shapiro. It does not default to that. You need to go in and change that. The way you do that is by clicking this little pencil right over here. That's going to take you into another page where you have the ability to go in and change it. Now, right over here, there should be an edit button. There it is. If I click the edit button right over here, it gives me the opportunity to change it. It's probably your first name, your last name, a dash, and a bunch of whole random letters and numbers. Try to change this to your first name, last name, or as close to it as you can get. You have up to 100 characters, so you can be a little bit more creative here. If you have a more common name, Chaim Shapiro wasn't a problem, but if you have a more common name, you can put a dash between your name. This could be a place to put PharmD, for example, or in my case, MED, if I wasn't able to get Chaim Shapiro. But once you actually get that and click on it and click save, what it's going to do is this is going to become your new URL, and that's something you could actually use once you make a professional profile as the signature line in your email. So I think it's very important to make sure that you personalize that and change that to your name or as close to your name as you can get. And once you go back to this page, just refresh the page, because otherwise it'll see that you're on 2 pages and it might not actually save some of the work that you do. I think I have another question. Oh, people, okay, just feel free to ask questions. Okay. If there are any questions, please let me know. If not, I'm going to move on to a couple little things here that are also available in terms of the main part of your profile. So if I click on this button right over here and it's slowing down on me, on now, it refreshes. Oh yeah, it's refreshing. It's thinking about it. Okay. First thing I want to show you here is this little, of course, as soon as I go there, it goes up. You see this little place over here is actually the opportunity to actually give the name pronunciation tool. This is only available for you to actually set up on the mobile apps of LinkedIn. What you're actually able to do is put your name in it, so people are actually able to see and push on it and see how you pronounce your name. So if you have a name, again, like Chaim, that's a great way for you to be able to pronounce that name so people will be able to actually see it. I think one of the things that I don't like that people have been doing recently is they also realize they have about 10 seconds here to put a little pitch about themselves. So people are saying, hi, Chaim Shapiro, contact me for all of your LinkedIn needs. I advise folks against that because I think it takes away from the power of what this does. Let me play this for you guys if you can hear that.
Chaim.
You guys hear that? So it's just me pronouncing my name. You have to set this up on one of the mobile apps of LinkedIn, but it's a great way to get your name out there. So people who have names that are more difficult to pronounce, people can actually pronounce those names. Now, getting back in here and getting into the part where we're actually going to edit a couple other things, I want to show you a few other things in here. Now, you have the opportunity to add your personal pronouns. That's something LinkedIn added about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And that's right down over here. I'm just going to switch mouses because this one doesn't seem to want to work. Okay. So we scroll down over here. It gives you a few options. You can choose she, her, he, him, they, them. Or you can choose custom, which allows you to put in the gender pronouns that best represent your gender identity. Now, I want to show you a trick that people are doing recently and get your thoughts on that. So I'm going to try and pull you guys in here. Now, what some people have been doing recently is putting in something like LinkedIn Expert. And look what this does to my profile. Now, we're going to go out of this page as soon as it saves. And look at that. Right after my name and my pronunciation, it says LinkedIn Expert, so people can see that I'm a LinkedIn expert. What do you guys think? Is that a good idea, a bad idea, ambivalent about it? Thoughts? Anybody? So I'm going to say that I happen to think it's a smart idea from a business strategy, but the point of the pronouns is to help a marginalized community, and you're taking away from the power of that for the people who actually need it. So I advise folks against doing that, just because again, I don't think it's not what it's intended for. The intent of that is to help people from those communities. So I would advise people against that. Just to move further down the profile here, you choose an industry. I assume pharmacy will be one in here if that's what you're choosing, or other medical sciences. Come on now. Let's see if it comes up, but it actually, there, pharmaceutical, there you go. So you actually choose this. You have to actually sync it with what LinkedIn has. LinkedIn doesn't have all the options in the world, but you want to get the one that's closest to you, because a lot of employers do actually do searches based on industries. You want to get as close as you can. LinkedIn has added a great number of extra industries over the last 3 or 4 years. So it's much better than it used to be. The other thing I want to show you here is that I have my postal code up over here, but you see here, I actually live in a little town called West Hempstead in Long Island. What I actually chose here is to choose New York City metropolitan area as opposed to West Hempstead, New York. And anyone want to venture a guess why I chose New York City metropolitan as opposed to the little town that I live in? I'm trying to draw you guys in. Come on now. Anybody?
It's well known.
Exactly. People know New York City. When I say West Hempstead, even people who live in New York look at me, where on the earth is that? So I want people to look at my profile and recognize me and recognize where I live, because people associate things with people that they recognize and things that they recognize. So I do think that's an important component of that. So if there's a metropolitan area that's closest, that's the one that I probably would choose as opposed to the other parts. Okay, that's the part about the top part here of your profile. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? Your LinkedIn triumvirate or any of the other parts that here under this little edit button, or your LinkedIn URL or the background image? If not, I'm going to keep matriculating my way down the profile, as we say. So next thing is contact information. It's a little bit hard to find. You need to hover over contact info over here and click on this to get into the edit mode of your contact info. Okay. First thing you want to do is click on the little pencil. This little pencil is going to take you into the edit mode of this. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves on LinkedIn is when I find somebody I'm potentially interested in reaching out to, and I see their email address on LinkedIn, I try to email them, and it's an email from 3 employers ago. It's something they used with their account when they were a kid, and they don't have their accurate email. So what you want to make sure you do is click on this little out button over here. This will allow you to actually manage your emails and make sure they're up to date. So as soon as this gets done, thinking about it over there we go. Here's my primary email, but I also have my Turo email and a secondary email on here. I can make any of these primary, but I've gotten rid of the ones that are not actually valid anymore, so that nobody can reach out to me via those ways. And you want to make sure that you choose the primary one that people will be able to access you. There are ways to change it so that people can access your email account, even if they're not connected to you. I do have my cell phone number up over here, and yes, I do get spam calls because of that. But my philosophy is I'd rather get a few spam calls than miss a couple of very important calls. And I'm getting spam no matter what happens. So, if people leave me a message, I'd rather not miss those opportunities and have my phone number up there. I do not have my address because I don't want them showing up at my house in West Hempstead. I do have my birth date, not the birth year, because a lot of people send me messages for my birthday, and it's a great networking opportunity. I don't have the birth year because a lot of times that's actually a security question. So I advise against putting the birth year. And I also have my personal website listed up over here. You can add your website. It's a great way to make sure that people can find what it is that you do and actually connect to what you do. So any questions about anything under the contact information? It's pretty straightforward, I think. Any question? I haven't had any questions yet. I had one question. Nothing? Okay. So I'm going to make sure to get rid of this LinkedIn expert before I'm done tonight, because that's not going to look good. Okay. So the next thing I want to get to is one of the more controversial parts here on LinkedIn is the open to work frame on LinkedIn. So you might have seen this. If you're actually open and looking for a job, one of the things you can do is set up a frame around your photo that says that you're open to work. The way you do that, either you click open to and add open to work if you don't currently have this, or you click on the open to work tab right over here. And you will see here that I actually have this currently set that I'm looking for Director of Career Development or Career Services on site, New York City metropolitan area, United States. but I'm flexible. I'm casually looking. I'm very happy at Turo. I've been here for 16 and a half years, but if somebody offered me $1 million a year to come work for them, that's something that I would consider. So I want to make sure that people who are using the recruiter platform on LinkedIn can actually see that. Now, if I wanted to, I could set this so all LinkedIn members see that I'm looking for a job. I click all LinkedIn members, and I click the save button. What that is going to do over here is, you see that it added that open to work frame right around my picture. And that way everybody on LinkedIn can actually see that I'm open to work. Now, I will say this is an area where I'm in the minority of LinkedIn consultants. I would say about 65% of LinkedIn consultants would say that if you're looking for a job, open to work is a good thing to put on. I'm in the 35% minority who advises against it. And I'll tell you what my reasoning is. And I do think it's valid, because people make very quick assessments on people when they're looking at their profiles. And if you're seeing people over here and you're trying to figure out who to engage with, and the first thing you see is open to work around their profile, I think that colors the interpretation and the perspective they have on you. And I'm not sure that's the first thing you want people to see. You're not defined by your job search. Your job search is an important thing. You could put that, for example, at the end over here or something like that. But if you're putting it right there, it's the first thing that they see. I'm not sure that works to the advantage of the person who's looking for a job, because that's the first thing people relate to. But again, I think 65% of my LinkedIn colleagues would probably say that I'm completely wrong on that, and you need to choose what it is that works for you. If you want to get rid of the open to work frame, you would need to go back in over here, click the pencil, go back and change that to the way that it was before, which is recruiters only. And once I do that, it should automatically, once I refresh the page, get rid of open to work. There we go. So that's gone. It's open to recruiters only at this point. By the way, if you're open to recruiters only, a lot of people ask me this question because they're worried, well, what if somebody at my company actually sees that I'm open to work? So what they actually say that people at your own company cannot access you on the recruiter platform, but be aware that a lot of times they hire outside consultants and whatnot to do that kind of work for them. And it doesn't mean that those outside consultants are limited from seeing the facts. So if you're putting anything out there that you're looking for a job on social media, or anything you put anywhere on social media, the assumption has to be that people are going to see it, and you have to be comfortable with that. Now I'm going to move down over here. Creative mode is really an advanced tool that most students it's not really relevant for. So I'm going to pass on that for the moment, unless there are any questions specifically about it. But I want to focus on the featured section. Now, again, as a person who claims he can give an excellent LinkedIn webinar, I don't just say that. People can go right over here, click on this. This will take them to the YouTube of a LinkedIn for the job search that I gave at the University of Cumberland a month ago, and let them see for themselves what I'm able to do. And I'm happy for that to sell me. So for students, if you've done presentations, it doesn't have to be videos. It can be actual PowerPoints and things like that that you've done on things related to your field. Put that in your featured section. Click the little plus button right over here, and you should be able to add a link, add media, other things like that in order to make sure that you are maximizing what people see. Now, just be aware that most people are not going to click this next button. So the first is the most important, second most important, third. After this, very few people are going to look at this, but I keep this here as an example. Students can put their resume up over here. And this gives people the opportunity to actually see their resume, and it looks like a resume right here on the desktop. And it also gives people who are not particularly savvy at LinkedIn the ability to download the actual full resume as a document and share it with whomever it is that they might want to share. So it can be worthwhile to include your resume on there as a document. If you want to change the order in which these appear, this little pencil right over here will allow you to go in, and you should be able to drag and drop, but it's not. Oh, it's there it is. Didn't show up right away. So this way, this will just let me move whichever one I want to the first one. And that's going to change it around me on the other side. And then that's going to be the first one and the second one. Again, the first one is by far the most important because very few people are going to be checking much beyond that. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? I hit the YouTube. There we go. Click on, you can click on. Let's go back to where we were. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to go back in and keep matriculating our way down the profile, as I like to say, as soon as this speeds up a little bit. Okay, so the next thing I want to highlight is your about section. It used to be called a summary section. They actually changed it to about. Now, it's actually very interesting. I was once giving a LinkedIn workshop live, and I said nobody likes Seymour. And there was actually somebody in the audience who got very upset at me because his name was Seymour. But what I wasn't actually saying is that nobody likes the name Seymour. What I was referring to is the button here that says Seymour. And what I was trying to say is very, very few people click on buttons and see more on social media. You need to hit them above the fold, as we used to say in the old newspapers, like the New York Times, above the fold in the newspaper box. So you want to make sure when you're putting your information in here, the most important stuff is up here on top, and they don't need to click the see more button. Now, if they click the see more button, there's more things you can put here. These are highly searchable. So it is advisable to put more things there, but get your best stuff there at the top. And one of the other changes that's very important recently is LinkedIn allows you to get your top 5 skills there as well. I definitely advise that you add your top 5 skills because, again, one of the things about LinkedIn, skills is much further towards the bottom. You don't know it's like going to go all that way down on your profile. This gives you the opportunity to highlight those skills higher up in your profile. You choose the 5 that you want. And again, you can move these things around depending on how you want to have it, and make sure to click save in order to maximize those opportunities. So a couple of things you want to do here is this gives you an opportunity to give more of a narrative than you had in your LinkedIn headline. Make sure to maximize this part that's above the see more line and add those 5 skills to make sure that people can see those skills without having to scroll even further down on your profile to be able to see them. Any questions? Oh, somebody's at I need a drink break. Dr. Pepper's the best soda, by the way, in case you're interested. I don't get any money from them. All right. So I'm going to keep moving down the profile and start talking about your how to work so your work experience is highlighted correctly here on Turo. Again, I apologize for this computer is doing its own thing, and I'm not sure why, but as soon as we get back to this page, yes, the benefit of it's like live theater, right? You know, it's like sometimes things work exactly right, sometimes it gets a little stubborn, and you have to go through it a couple of times. So I apologize for that. We're going to go back here to, we'll just do it the easy way. Don't waste time. On now. There we go. Okay. Now going back down here to work experience, a couple of important things I want to highlight over here. First is you see this line over here that shows that I've been working at Turo for, well, a very long time. This shows continuity. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a few minutes. But the way you actually add or change this, the plus button adds work experience. This little pencil allows you to edit your work experience. So when you go into the work experience, again, here you can click the little pencil to get in to wherever you are. You want to make sure you put your title. By the way, Notified Network, toggle this to off, because one of the things that happens on LinkedIn is you make a small change to your LinkedIn work experience. Sometimes it sends out messages, you got a new job, even though you've been in the same place for 16 and a half years. So keep this as off unless you're making a major change to your employment. Now, one of the most important things here is to make sure you sync your company name with the LinkedIn account. So if you see what happens here, there's a nice, beautiful Turo logo. If I get rid of that Y, look what happened to the Turo logo. It's gone. I need to make sure I click on Turo University, and that's going to make sure it is synced to Turo University, and people looking for Turo University employees, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later, are actually going to be able to find me. But you got to make sure the autofill is actually done. And most major companies shouldn't have a problem with that. Occasionally you run into smaller companies that do not have pages. But if you don't want to do that, it's not a problem. Now, the other thing you can do here is you can actually include bullets. I think LinkedIn should have a bullet feature. I have no idea why in the world LinkedIn doesn't include a bullet feature. So you see these things aren't formatted correctly, but I still take the bullets right off of my resume and I pop them right in there, because for me, big blocks of text are not easy for people to read on social media. So I'd rather have this, even though it's not formatted. You see how this goes over the line over here this way? Even though it's not perfect, I'd rather have that because it separates out different ideas in a way that I think help people read it a little bit more clearly. Now, just to show you how to make sure that you have this continuity. So you'll see here my new position started in July 2023. And one of the things I had to make sure to do here is make sure this one ended either in June or July of 2023. And that way, whether it's either connected to the same month or 1 month off, will allow you to show that continuity at the same employer. Otherwise, what happens is it divides us up into 2 work experiences. And the same thing is true here. July 2016, and this was a position that I started in July 2016. Important to do to make sure you show that continuity. Now, one of the other questions I frequently get is how far back should you, by the way, here's an example of a company that doesn't have their logo, and look at the difference between these. Look at the difference between Pace and this one here in Hillel and this one. I mean, it doesn't look as professional, doesn't look as nice. So that's what also going to happen if you don't sync it with the actual suggested company. So you want to make sure you have that as well. But people often ask me, how far back should you go on your LinkedIn profile in terms of jobs? And my perspective is, you know something? If you had positive work experiences, I don't see there's any reason not to include things well, a very, very long time ago when George H.W. Bush was actually president, believe it or not. Because look, this showed I was hauling furniture, working a register, doing all the things I needed to do in college. I wish I was still capable of hauling furniture, but I'm not physically capable of that anymore. But I think as long as it's a positive work experience, there's no reason not to include it. Very, very few people are going to click and read all the way down your profile, but for the those who do, there's no reason not to include it. And it's not like a resume where you're limited in terms of the number of pages. So you can include more and more things there. And you don't have to worry about that in terms of making sure that you include all those things. By the way, if you ever get to the point where your side hustle becomes more important than your main job, you'd actually change your positions to make sure your side hustle shows up on top. And they should change it around. There we go. So my new position is social media consultant as opposed to working at Turo. I'm going to change this back immediately so my boss doesn't see it. But that's something that you're able to deal with current jobs that you have there under work experience. Okay, questions so far about work experience? Anything else we've spoken about? I'm doing a
I
lot
have
of
a question.
Yes, please.
So I see that there's a line at the bottom that talks about skills, in these different jobs that you have. Is that something you did, or did
Yes, you
did
actually can
LinkedIn do that for you somehow?
So you actually do it yourself. And actually, I was going to show you this a little bit later. It's a great question because the easier way to do this is under the skills section on each position. I'll show you why. Just to show you the answer to the question really quickly. If I go over here to my skills, again, it's taking its time. If I click on the skill, it actually is going to give me the opportunity to include all of those positions in one time. So I don't have to go through each one and add it. So that's why I showed this to you under skills as opposed to showing to you under work experience. But it's a great question. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm not sure. Can you go back up to the top of your work
Yes.
experience there?
So you see here under work experience, I have career counseling, job fairs, and 9 other skills listed here, right? But
Okay, yeah, it's actually, yeah, you're right. It's the same as
you
well, it's
can
slightly different.
Yeah, you can add that over here at the bottom, but if you do that, you need to do that for each of the positions separately. The better way to do it to make sure that the skills that you have are show up on each of the places where you've worked or that are relevant is by going over here, clicking on that skill, and then simply clicking the little button next to the work experience. So that way it takes a lot less work. Because I can just add any of these. And again, I didn't use this as this particular position, so I don't have that there. Otherwise, you need to add it one at a time to each position. And again, if you've worked as long as I have, that's a little bit more difficult than the people if you're relatively new in terms of working. It's not as much of an issue. Great question. Other questions? Okay, move down to education. Same kind of thing here that you want to have under job experience. Make sure that you sync your education to your actual college with the autofill. Again, if I get rid of the E in UC Riverside, you see that it gets rid of the actual logo. And one of the big problems with that is that people are searching for alumni of UC Riverside. They're actually not going to find me. And if I'm looking for jobs, I'll show you that in a little while, it's also not going to show up. So make sure to sync that with your current school. By the way, if you're at all a fan of the NCAA tournament, couple years ago, my Loyola University did pretty good in terms of the tournament, made it to the Final Four about 6-7 years ago. And during that run, I actually moved Loyola to the top, even though it's a lot more recent, because that changed it at the top of my profile. So that when people saw my profile under my university, it had Loyola University. It was a great way to engage folks. So generally, this is going to be associated with whichever your highest degree is and your most recent. But if you ever wanted to change the order for whatever reason, like the NCAA tournament, you can definitely do that. And then when you're done with that, flip it right back to the way that it was, and you'll have the same thing. You also have room to include other things, the Speaker of the Student Senate or whatever it was that you actually did while you're in college. And that gives the people an opportunity to see some of your activities. Okay, questions about education? I think it's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, license and certifications is probably going to be very important for you. If you don't see this here, if you go to add profile section, it's going to be, I believe it's under recommended. Or is it under core or additional? Let's see. Organization, volunteer experience, clauses, maybe it's under core. Add skills. All right. Not seeing it right now. Oh, license and certification, there's under recommended. This is actually something very important, especially if you have different licenses, because people want to see that, and you want to make sure that you actually put it in and sync it again to the agency that actually enters it. because you want to make sure that people are actually able to see who is that giving you that particular certification. So you see here again that I made sure that I had the Center for Credentialing and Education synced and clicked on so that people can see that's actually connected to that. So that's a very important thing. And probably in your professions to make sure it's important to have that done accurately. The next thing I want to move down to is the skills section. We had a couple questions about this before. Now you see here also, this is also a very Seymour kind of thing because only 2 of these show up here at the top. You want to make sure your top 2 show up at the top. Now you can add up to 100 skills. This is different than it was. They made this change about 3 months ago. So I used to believe you don't want to put any of the lower skills, like, project, what do you call it? Self-motivated, hardworking, not include those kinds of things. But now that you have the ability to include 100,
Slow traffic.
I think it doesn't, not a bad idea to include those because a lot of people on the recruiter platform could be looking for employees with those particular skills. But don't put them first. Put them towards the end and add those skills. The way to add a skill is simply go on over here and you could start looking and start typing in anything that you want. And it'll give you some suggested things that you might want to put in and click it. And that'll allow you to actually put that into your profile and you can add those things. The other thing that I want to show you, and this is the question we got before, is in each individual skill, you have the ability to go in there and make sure that you associate it with each employment or school opportunity where you utilize that skill. That will show up not only here, but it's most importantly going to show up on the higher parts of your profile. Much easier to do it here. The other thing you could do is if you wanted to change the order in which these show up, because you might have something like project management that's not important to you, just a drag and drop right over here. So you go over here. Let's say I wanted to move program development up first. Just would do that. And that will change it around this as soon as the page refreshes. There we go. Program development is first. And when I want to change that back, I can actually go back and change LinkedIn. The reason that's important, again, most people are not going to be looking beyond that first 2. So you want to make sure your first 2 are the best 2. Now, one of the most common questions I get from students especially is, how do I know what skills to include here? How do I know what skills are most important for my particular people in my profession? So one of the hacks here that you can only hear here is go to a company that you're particularly interested in. I chose Massachusetts General Hospital as one of these particular places. This is their employer page. I click on them. Now watch this. I go to people right over here. And then click this button twice. And look what it shows me. It actually shows me what the people working at that particular hospital are skilled in. Microsoft Office is a little bit too general, but healthcare, a little too general. Research skills, clinical research. Those kinds of things are very, very important. Data analysis. These are the kinds of things that give you valuable data as to what people who are currently working there are actually skilled in. And one of the other great things you can do that most people don't know about is you can actually go on here and see what people from your particular school actually have said and which skills got them hired to that particular company. So I actually changed that to your particular school. I go over here and this is going to change slightly patient safety, basic life support, so you can see which things, and by the way, you can go through this and play around with it. What they do, you can change it to pharmacy, whatever else it is. So it's important to come and triangulate around a couple of different employers. Don't take Massachusetts General as the only place to do this. Find 3 or 4 places where you could actually find out that kind of information, because it's a great way to make sure that you're getting the right kinds of skills on your profile. By the way, another thing it shows you, these are the alumni that are actually from your school who are working at that particular place. This can be a great, great way to connect with these folks and utilize them potentially in your job search. Make sure, don't click the connect button here, but if you wanted to connect with them, click the button right over here. Then you could actually click the connect button and send a personalized message. In about 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to talk about my complaints about the changes to the connect button. But the other thing that people often ask me is, what if somebody has a follow button? If some of you are looking at my profile, you'll see that I have a follow button. That usually means that they have creator mode on, but you can still send them a connection request. You need to click the more button, connect, add a note. I'm out of my monthly numbers, but that gives you the opportunity to send that connect, even though they only have the follow button set up. Okay. And the last thing I want to show you here on the profile really quick is the opportunity to include recommendations. I think it's very important to make sure that you have, let's say, I would say 3 to 5 recommendations. It gives people the opportunity to give you a narrative of what they think about your work and who you are. You need to be connected to somebody to ask for those kinds of recommendations. You click the plus button, ask for recommendation, and you start typing in. It has to be somebody you're connected to. See if I start typing somebody in there. Doesn't matter who it is. I click on this person, click the continue button, and how I know the person. This is the important part. Personalize this. Don't just say, hey, send me a connection request. Say, I worked with you on a particular project and I was hoping you would give me a recommendation that included my LinkedIn profile that speaks about X, Y, and Z. Make sure it's more specific so that you're actually able to include that in your profile. Just so you know, nobody can actually put this on your profile for you. So when Chloe sent me this, I had the ability to actually approve it before it was put up on my profile. If, for example, Chloe said something that I wanted to change, what I could do is go in right over here and actually request that she make a small change. And if she was willing to, here we go, would you change this? And if she was willing to, she could change that again. Once that was changed, I would actually need to approve it and she would actually need to change it. Okay, but it is important, I think, to get to, let's say 3 to 5 recommendations. I personally believe once you get to 3 to 5 recommendations, that tends to push you up in the search ranking. So it's important to get those recommendations. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to provide more of a narrative. People give more of a narrative about who you are. You want people who are more prestigious to be the ones that are giving you the recommendations. We're not talking about your roommate here. We're talking about professors or people that you've worked for. So that's the LinkedIn profile. Any questions about LinkedIn profiles in general? Or anything we've spoken about up until this point? And if not, I'll move on to the next section. By the way, you can always add other profile sections over here. See the things that are here, additional and other things that you could add. So these are all things depending on what you've done, you can actually add to your profile. But there are no questions on the LinkedIn profile itself. I'm going to move on to how to start looking for jobs here on site. No questions? All right. If I go to jobs, this is the jobs tab here on LinkedIn. If I click on this, this is going to take me into the ability to start searching for jobs. Okay, this has topics for me, and we're not interested in that right now because what I'm looking for is something that's going to be more closely related to where you guys are. So I put in pharmacist in Boston, Massachusetts. And this is going to give me a number of things that are particularly relevant to those kinds of positions in my particular area. Now, a couple of things here. What makes LinkedIn's job board in a lot of ways better than a lot of other job boards is it actually shows you the connection you have to people who are currently working at the particular company you're interested in. So if I was interested in CVS, for example, I can see here that I have 10 connections that I'm connected to actually work at CVS. So I could, for example, if I wanted to, send a message to Nicole and say, hey, Nicole, I'm looking for a job working in the pharmacy at CVS. You tell me a little something about the navigating the application process? So it turns a cold lead into a warm lead. One of the other great things here is there's 87 school alumni. And if this is set to your school alumni, you'll see your school alumni who also work there. Now, I might not be connected to these folks, but school alumni tend to be people who are more willing to help their other fellow alumni. So it could be a great way to help to reach out to them and make sure that you are actually maximizing these opportunities. Easy Apply is an opportunity to apply directly on site. There are some people who think Easy Apply isn't as effective as applying on the website itself. I personally don't believe that. I think they're pretty much equal. So definitely apply via Easy Apply. Another thing to point out here is you can set up alerts. So you don't have to check this every day. Now you might need to play around with this. You might want to do a pharmacy specializing in NICU care or something like that. Whatever the particular specialty is, play around with that in terms of experience level, in terms of company, in terms of remote, whatever it happens to be. Once you get those filters that you're getting the jobs, set an alert. That alert will come to you either every day or every week. So you don't have to come check this all the time. You can simply go back when it comes in and then apply for those particular jobs. And let's say, for example, I'm interested in this particular job, but I'm on the train and I don't have time to actually look through this. If you click the save button over here, this is actually going to save this job application to your profile. And you can actually go back to that and check on that a little bit later. So if I go to view profile, just to show you where to find this, find a job I'm very interested in, and I click on that on mobile. If I go here to show all 5 resources, it's going to have my items. There we go. And that saved job is going to be right in there, which gives me the opportunity to go back to it fully, Easy Apply, or just unsave it and make sure that's not there anymore. So I think what I would definitely advise that you do is play around with the searches to make sure you're getting them exactly the way that you want to get them. and also make sure that you're setting those alerts to get those things and utilize the people, the connections you have on LinkedIn. That's one of the beauties of LinkedIn. It is a social network, which is different than a lot of the job boards. We're just going to be sending things into the ethers without having that connection request. Now, any questions about job searching? So I want to show you a cool tool that is not being used on LinkedIn that really should be. So nowadays, a lot of people actually have to do video interviews, or they're not even talking to a live person necessarily. Well, how do you know if you're doing a good video interview? If you click on this jobs tab right over here, and this is on the free side of LinkedIn, go to interview prep. Look what this gives you. The opportunity to practice interview questions and actually get an AI readout as to how you did. So you'll see my answers over here, and this gives me the opportunity to see the video. It's not going to have the AI readout for technical reasons, but when you put in a new video right over here, what it is going to do is give you an AI readout that tells you whether you're speaking too quickly, speaking too loudly, you're stammering, or whatever it is, and make sure that you're actually presenting your ideas in a way with the right intonation. It gives you some good information there. And one of the other great things about this is after you're done with your video and you want to see, well, how did I do? You can simply go to your friendly neighborhood career services professionals. I spell your name right. There we go. I can click on her. I'm not saying to do it to her, but this gives you the opportunity to send that video directly to your career services person for their feedback. And guess what? They can't share that video beyond themselves. So they'll be able to give you feedback on how you did on that video. And I think it's a great, great tool that people are not currently using. I advise people to utilize this. You have unlimited numbers and you get that AI readout so you can actually see how you're doing. Look, it's really important to know if you're pacing yourself correctly and if you're using the right intonation and if you're stammering. Let people know that. What mistake did I make here, by the way? See them down over here? There's my Diet Dr. Pepper. I have a bag over here in this. So if you're doing a video interview, never have this stuff in the background. So that's another thing that allows you, and I'm sure, if you send it to your friendly neighborhood career services professional, they will tell you the very similar kind of thing when it comes to that, okay? Now, any questions about anything we've spoken about so far before I get on my soapbox for a few minutes? Okay, so there aren't. I want to get into my soapbox. I think one of the changes LinkedIn just made, but probably about 3 or 4 months ago, is they actually limited the number of connection requests that people can send personalized connection requests per month on the free side. Used to be you could send, I think it was like either 100 a week, I believe, personalized connection requests. If I'm reaching out to one of those alumni that we talked about before that work at Massachusetts General, for example, I don't want to just send them a connection request that doesn't say anything. I want to tell them who I am and why it is I'm specifically reaching out to them. And what LinkedIn did is they limited the number of those you can send per month. So if you want to reach out to somebody new, you've lost that ability because you only have 5 per month that you can personalize. So if I wanted to send one out to Nikita, okay, if I click the connect button, what you want to always do is add a note and tell her why you want to connect with her. But look what happens when I do this now. It's the end of the month and I've used up my 5. I have to pay and reactivate premium to access the ability to send that to her. The reason this is a problem in my mind is the people who need it most, thank God I'm a pretty good networker on LinkedIn. I have 25,000 plus followers. So not being able to send more than 5 connection requests, it's annoying. It's a problem. But people who are starting out, who are students, who are trying to build their network and don't have the ability to send out the connection requests they need to send out, that's a very, very hurtful thing for them when they're trying to start out in their profession. And I really believe we need to be pressuring LinkedIn to change this, either by making sure that there's a much higher limit for anybody with an EDU email address, or to come up with a very, very inexpensive option for students to make sure that they're not missing out on those opportunities and sending those personalized connection requests. Now, for example, if you wanted to send a connection request to me today, what I advise to do nowadays is, because you were at the session, I'll recognize you from the name of your school, just send the connection request. And after I accept that connection request, you have the ability to message me and tell me what you thought about the session. So that's how I would do it now. But it's really a very hurtful thing for people who are trying to get started in LinkedIn. And I'm hoping LinkedIn changes this. I really think it is a major, major problem for LinkedIn. Okay. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? Because we're coming about 9 minutes left. And I want to see if there's anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to cover. I have a couple other things to point out here. One of the other things, one of the great networking opportunities that people miss out on LinkedIn is LinkedIn will actually show you the last 5 people who viewed your profile. This is the LinkedIn homepage. Profile viewers, it says 450. Don't worry about that number. If I click on this, it's going to show me the last 5 folks who actually viewed my profile. Now, this is an incredible networking opportunity. So he sent me a connection request. I can accept that a little bit later, but I can message these folks potentially and say, hi, Diddy, thank you so much for viewing my LinkedIn profile. Please let me know how I can be of assistance. It's a great opportunity to engage folks or send connection requests if they're not actually connected to you. Usually for most folks who aren't getting more than 5 or 6 of these a day, if you check it once or twice a day, you will be able to get all of them. If you're getting 40 or 50 a day, then it might be actually one of the few times it makes sense to get premium, because premium actually shows you 90 days worth of people who viewed your profile. So that's one of the times if you're getting that many where it might make sense in order to do that. But check that on a daily basis and follow up with the folks who are interested in you, because that is a buy signal from them. Okay. Next thing I also want to show you is how do you know how to engage and find the right people on LinkedIn? LinkedIn is a big, big network. And like I told you, you're very limited in the number of connection requests you can send. And if you're somebody really important on LinkedIn, like I'm not even sure that, just a random guy who sends me a connection request, why would I want to accept that? So the way around that is to start engaging people on their posts. Now, one of the things you can do here, I put in drug pricing as an example, but it could be anything that's related to your field that really comes up with the kinds of things that allow people having discussions around things that are important. Now, if I click posts over here, it's going to take me to posts people have made recently about drug pricing. I'm just going to change this date posted to last month so I don't have really old stuff here. Past month, show results, and look what this does. This gives me comments, not people I'm connected to even. People who are talking about whatever it have, record drug prices, whatever it is. But look what I can do now, actually. I can go down over here and click the comment button. When I click the comment button, the first thing I want to do, so this lets me do it, at and tag the person who actually, come on now. There we go. Is that the person's name? Brian, sometimes it doesn't come up exactly. Make sure you tag the right person. There we go. Tag that person. This makes sure that they're going to know in their notifications that you actually tag them. And then give me something that shows me that you're an expert in this field. Show me something about it. You read the article and you really know what you're talking about, and this is your area and you're an expert. And it's a great way to start building those connections with people who are the industry leaders who are talking about these things and engage in those conversations. And, it's also a great way to demonstrate your expertise. Again, if you're commenting on things that people are putting there and people are seeing yourself promote your knowledge and your expertise, it's a great way to make sure that people see who you are. And then afterwards, after I started engaging Brian for, say, a couple of weeks on his posts, I can send that connection request, which he's much, much more likely to accept because he's already talked to me. Again, what you're putting in here to find those kinds of things will potentially change depending on what your area of expertise is and what the conversations in your area of expertise are about. So the people in your field will know that best. So I'm guessing drug pricing is one of them. If there's other things, put that in there. Do some searches till you identify those things and start making sure to engage the people who are talking about it. But one of the other things you can do is if you have a particular target, you're very interested in a particular person. Let's say I was very interested in Brian Jackson per se, for whatever particular reason. One of the little things you can do here on his account, if you scroll down, it'll actually show you his recent activity. You see this here? Here are his recent posts. So if I was very interested in engaging a particular person, I can wait till they post on something about which I can actually comment and then jump in there and comment on that and start building that relationship. So I check some of the people who are big targets for me that I really want to build relationships with to start networking by commenting. And again, it's got to be a good comment. It's not just say, hey, good point. It's actually showing you understand it, but that gives you the opportunity to make sure that you are engaging them on things that are of importance to them and importance to you. And it's a great, great way to build that network out. One of the other changes LinkedIn made recently is they took Twitter out of people's LinkedIn profiles. Twitter was also a great, great way to make sure you were able to engage folks on things other than business. If I saw someone Twitter's account and they were talking about the Oscars from a couple of weeks ago, that could be my opportunity to engage them on something and build that relationship off of LinkedIn. Why did LinkedIn get rid of it? Because it was taking people off platform and they want to keep people on platform, but it took away an important engagement tool for folks. And once you start getting more comfortable with LinkedIn, you want to start posting on a regular basis. So go to those topics, go to drug pricing, post your original thoughts about drug pricing and make sure that people see it, because that's going to show up in the people you're connected to. That's going to show up right over here in their feed, and people can potentially engage you as well. And that's a great way to help you, in addition to what you've done before, start building out that reputation as an expert in your particular field. So I think it's very important to be posting on a regular basis and always add value. Again, the posts you're putting here are generally not going to be about what you had for lunch or whatever it is like that. It's professional kinds of things that help sell you as a professional. Though I do think that if you start posting on a regular basis and you're a regular content creator, every once in a while you can throw in something kind of interesting. So there was a Jewish holiday on Sunday at Purim, and here is a picture of my wife and my daughter and me just sitting there on the garbage can as Oscar the Grouch. Now, again, it's not something I necessarily would advise for people who are starting out, but once you get to the point where you've been on this platform for a while and you build your reputation as an expert, look at the engagement I got here. 24 people like this. That's a good number of people compared to this other post that I had the other day where I had 2 or 3. So again, you want to always make sure you're adding content, but once you're starting to post things on a regular basis, I think you can get about 5 or 10% of the time do some other professional looking things just to give it a little bit of a human interest. I want to stop here. I usually like to keep the last 3 minutes for any questions you have about anything we've spoken about today. Oh, somebody asked, what are the things that people show up as LinkedIn member? So that's actually right over here. If you go back to where we were on profile viewers. Okay, so I don't think anyone shows up as that on mine right now, but you see someone at Winthrop University. This means they actually set in their settings that people cannot see their name when they view their profiles. So they turn that off, and that either they can show that just their employer or just someone on LinkedIn. And unfortunately, there's no way around that. So if somebody has that turned off, you will not be able to find out who they are, even if you have a premium account. Just be aware that if you choose to go incognito, you won't be able to see the 5 people who viewed your profile, which I actually think is a good thing because it's a quid pro quo, right? If you're not showing people, you shouldn't be able to see other people. So that people will come up as LinkedIn members, just people who've chosen in their settings to make sure they're hiding that from people. Look, if you're looking at profiles of people who might be in recruiting or whatever it is, and you don't want them to know you're doing that, that's when you turn that on. Other questions? About 2 minutes left. Any other questions? Unless jump on screen. Anything we spoke about today, or any of the questions you have about LinkedIn you're afraid to ask? So I want to show you one more quick thing here. Another question I get very, very often is, how do I know where my sent connection requests are? So if you go to my network and manage right over here and go to sent, this will actually show you your pending sent requests. There we go. And you can see those over there and potentially see whether if people do not accept it, they decline it, you won't see that. But the ones that are still pending, you're able to see that. If you sent it to somebody a long time ago, you can withdraw, but looks what happens if you withdraw, you can't send them another one for 3 weeks. So that's another little trick there that I think can be very helpful. Any other questions about anything here on LinkedIn? Otherwise, I'm gonna hand it back, I think. Because we're right at 7 o'clock.
Okay, any last minute questions? All right, hopefully you all found this very helpful. Thank you, Chaim, for presenting to us. I learn at least one new tip every time I go to one of these things, so that was great. I did learn one new thing that I didn't know, so that's good.
What was the new thing this time? Can I ask?
All right, and if any of the students on here have any questions, obviously you can see your career advisor. Many of us work with you on your LinkedIn profiles and can help you set up some of the things that we're talking about tonight, or talk to you about other things to include on there also. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you so much for having me also.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's stay on for a meeting here for a minute too. So how was that? Good?
Yes, I was just trying to see if I could There we go.
Okay,
Let
good.
me
So,
actually look at it.
okay, happy? We're all good?